I'm very glad to be here this morning. I hope you all are too. Uh, we've had many thoughts brought up in our discussions here already, and I just want to build on them a little bit in some way or other. Uh, all of the things that we have read are statements that are positive. Now we know that the world includes negative as well as positive. So let's establish a sort of perspective here uh, that starts before the world. And before the world, there was no negativity of any kind. In anybody's mind, anywhere. And we can call this perfection, if you like. And by that, we would mean unending happiness, joy, delight, singing, and just being at one with all. And it was formless. The more significant aspects of our existence here are formless too. If one feels grief, well, the feeling is formless. The expression of it's not. When you express it, you get a form, but the feeling is not. When you feel love, what color is love? It doesn't have a color. You know, how high is it in feet? Well, it doesn't have a shape. See, but expressions of it do. So we are familiar with things that are formless. We just sort of don't pay attention or don't focus on it. We tend to focus on the forms that we use to express it with. And we start to think, well, there are the things that are there that were really real. And what we say here is no, what was really real is that which was before forms. And it was our original experience of formless perfection. So formlessness includes love, and it includes joy and peace. Now, for reasons that I'm not going to belabor today, maybe some other time, but not today, it was necessary, I just say it that way, for this to change. And there was a layer of illusion, if you like. If this perfection is represented as a block, I come from science, and in physics, you draw blocks all the time and have something pulling and pushing them. At any rate, a block is okay. A block of perfection. Well, there was a layer of illusion that we need to lay it to. It was necessary to cover it with a layer of illusion, and we experience that as our being cut off from God. There's no illusion. You would be tuned into God the same way you're tuned into the air you breathe. It would just be automatic and without change. But again, for actually a necessary reason, from my perspective, right? This layer was necessary to be here. And so what we have, and when that happened, or what we saw was the world, and for a while this layer is going to remain here. We've talked a bit about death. The Course says there's really no death. That's a misnomer. There's just a transition, because it's the spirit that's real. One of our form. This is the world of form, and form, it means bodies. It means objects of one sort or another. Earth itself is a material form. And you can set the forms as if when the form is set aside, you don't disappear. You just become what you always have been and just didn't realize it, you might say. And so uh, the Course says that death, as we use the word, it never comes at the wrong time. And it's just not a possibility. That's a really comforting thought, by the way. So it's good to remember that you're not going to die at the wrong. The universe does not allow you to die at the wrong time. It's not possible. And it wasn't. The reason we say it's not really a death is because the body itself is not alive. It is our spirit that enlivens it. And when you take the mind, the spirit out of it, well, it shuts down. It's kind of like when you turn the electricity off of a motor, the motor spins down and stops. The spirit is the electricity of life. It causes the flow. It causes it to be animated instead of just a lump of clay. So there is this layer of illusion. And when we say that everything is light and love, that is our affirmation of what was before the world. It doesn't mean that we're not aware of darkness and dullness that can be here, there, or yonder. It means that it is the statement that this layer of illusion, which does contain darkness, well, it is. It's just it doesn't contain it. It is darkness, and it also and it can be violent and involve what the world thinks of as death. Put a little question mark by death because it's not exactly the right word. But at any rate, the illusion can have all this in it. But the statement here is that is temporary. It is not reality, or certainly not ultimate reality. It's temporary. Reality should not be temporary, after all. It is a temporary thing, and it will go. And we do not have to be under its heavy weight if we don't want to. So there's a choice to make. You can be under the laws of the world if you want, even if you don't want it and just don't think about it, it will occur automatically unless you do something different. It's the default system. The laws of the world is what is going to pop up and be present for you in your life and experiences if you don't take other action and make it otherwise. And the laws of the world are violent, and they most certainly lead to death. When I think of use the word death, let's think about that just a moment. I remember years and years ago. If you go back far enough, I had a fear of death. Many people do. And maybe I was 30 or something like that. And I was out walking around in the neighborhood with a friend of mine, and I just got to the point where I didn't fear death. It's sort of a new switch for me, a new thing. And I don't know whether I was exactly 30 or not, but somewhere along in there. And I happened to mention him, well, I just don't fear death anymore. And he says, well, of course you do. Everybody fears death. It can't be otherwise. Well, whatever. If that's what he wants to think, then he can think that. If that's what, who am I to try to forcibly change his beliefs? I wouldn't know how to do it anyhow. All I could do is say, well, that's not. Basically, what he was saying was, Bob, I don't believe you. Well, it doesn't matter. But I wasn't making something up. I just didn't have it. Fear death, I still don't, but never have since then. And but many people do. So it's not a natural thing. It's the unknown. I guess they put it that way. Well, I don't regard it as unknown anymore. But at any rate, it's easy to fear that, and I now see that as a more of a choice. And I learned that from the Course in Miracles. It stated in there at some point. I was reading along and I noticed it said, "You have chosen fear." And I thought, I don't choose fear. It falls on me like a brick from the sky. And I thought, well, it's saying that I choose fear. Well, let's just look at it from that perspective then. Anytime that you are fearful, I suggest that, or the course says, you're choosing to feel that way. Now that choice can come real quick. You see a rattlesnake right there, the choice is going to come quickly that, oops, something to fear here. But you don't have to make that choice. You can just make the choice, let's just take a step back and not step closer in particular. You don't have to drag fear in it at the same time. That's your choice. And we get used to liking, I think, to choose fear. It's sort of a mixed approach to it. We fear it, but we avoid it as well. So we prefer to go to a movie of fear and see a movie of a big horrors of one sort or other. But we don't really want it to go home and open the door and find the horror there in our house. That's too much fear. See, either way, you're choosing fear. So we can think of fear and love as sort of as being opposite. And what the Course says, they are your two emotions. And you say, well, I've got a lot of other emotions. Well, no doubt, but they all derive from fear and love or some mix of it. And that's just the way that the Course tends to state that. So you can choose to not fear. You can choose love instead. And in particular, I would suggest that if you experience fear, that you say immediately in your mind, I choose God. Because you've forgotten him. Why? God's not fearful. Therefore, you necessarily have forgotten him at that moment, at any rate. Just say, I choose God. And remember God. He is the creator. There is no fear in him. He has never put any fear in your mind. And that's what our lesson is. I am still as God created me. I am actually a being who has no need for fear, but it's kind of got pulled into playing with it. And someone has made the statement that love is infinitely more powerful than fear, but fear is more seductive. What you think of going to a movie for a minute, all the different kind of movies we have. If you're going to have a movie about love, it's probably going to involve some relationships, and you need to develop the characters a little bit, and it takes a little while, and you leave the movie with experiencing the loving feeling between these people. If it's going to be about fear, it starts with bang, and the monster jumps out at you. You don't have to wait to develop anything, and you can be pulled in quickly, easily, and when you leave, there's no feeling of love. I'm just glad that's not real, But fear turns on your adrenaline, gives you a little adrenaline rush, and you may value that. I don't know. A lot of people do. They jump off cliffs just to get an adrenaline rush. Of course, they have a parachute or something on them, or maybe they have a rope tied around their stomach. Well, or maybe you just go to the carnival and decide to ride the roller coaster. You do that because of the adrenaline rush that you expect to get, which happens right at the top. for me. Or as soon as you go start going back down. Oh, going up. Oh, this is not so bad. This is not so bad. Then here's a time. Uh-oh, here we go. Yeah. Hope this thing stays on the track. So we live in a world where we don't know everything. There's uncertainty. If I knew everything, and I was at the top of the roller coaster right there, and I knew for a fact, I just knew nothing was going to break. And then and then I'm not going to fall out unless like I can see the future. I just know it's not going to occur. I think the fear would begin to go away if you really knew. Let's take. You say, well, Bob, that's an acceleration. We respond that way to acceleration. Well, not necessarily. When I step down, when I'm coming down a ladder, there's a deceleration, or no, there's just an acceleration. Acceleration just means move, changing your state of movement. I experience acceleration, but it's very minor, and most certainly doesn't scare me. It's only when it gets bigger. Well, I'm accelerating right now. Do you see me quaking in fear? I'm moving. If you're moving, you're accelerating. Accelerate, deaccelerate. You're just moving all the time. Acceleration doesn't have to produce fear. But if it gets large, we tend to react to it in that way. It's like I have a sense of, I know sort of what's going to happen in my immediate vicinity in the next few minutes. The table's still going to be here. That's, I have a sense of that. But if you start messing with it, then I get to think, well, I'm not so sure what's going to happen. And then I'm into the unknown. And then I think, well, fearful things may occur, and I might as well be afraid of them if they're fearful, of course. And the Course is saying, actually, there's nothing to fear. In a sense, it's saying it's nothing to fear. But your own mind can make up fear if you wish. Why are you choosing this? It's not real. Well, I'm not going to answer that question. I don't even know the answer, for that matter. But fear is more seductive, so we need to be aware of it. Get in the habit of saying to yourself, there's nothing to fear. Because your mind is very powerful. And if you happen to believe that there's plenty of things to fear, well, you will experience fear. That's the way it is. You go to shut the door at night and you're going to lock it. That can bring on fear right there. Why are you locking it for? Well, there are dangerous things out there. Really dangerous? That means fear. Don't ever think anything is fearful. Just decide either to do it or not do it. And if it's something that you would have previously called fearful, just don't do it. Stepping in a bed of snakes, not good. Don't do that. But you don't have to be fearful about it, Fear is your choice. And you can choose instead to see everything as peaceful, everything as it should be. Say, well, that's fine until it gets too extreme. When people are falling off the edge of a cliff, when they're being very violent with each other, you're in the midst of a war or an insurrection, if you like. It doesn't matter. A herd of elephants thundering, coming straight at you. Your first thing you want to do is to not choose fear. I thought it was run. No, they can run faster. I think that's irrelevant. Climb a tree. I think that's irrelevant. They can knock it over. Shooting with my little pea shooter because any little rhyme, it takes a big weapon to bring an elephant down. There's a herd of them. Forget it. What do you want to do? You remember God. I'm serious. I'm deadly serious in saying this. And let His strength, you can say, replace your weakness. You're weaker than an elephant. Nobody needs to convince you of that one. So but God is not. I'm saying that's exactly what you would need to do. Remember, at the first flicker of fear, you've forgotten God, have you not? Of course. Cannot be denied. God doesn't fear. You've forgotten Him. Well, okay, it's time to remember him. How do you start that? You just say in your mind, I remember God. Say it 10 times if you need, whatever. You're calling on God, and you say, I allow his strength to replace my weakness. So you just stand there, and the darn elephants split and go around you. You say, Bob, do you know that for sure? I just know that God can have whatever he wants to have here to happen. The Holy Spirit can communicate to the minds of elephants, I'm sure, somewhere or other, if he wants, and say, hey, you go right. Hey, you go left. How do I know that? Who am I to say that the Holy Spirit can't put a thought in the mind of an elephant? As far as I'm concerned, he can. I remember a story of a lady that was born enlightened. I mean, she just came out of the womb enlightened, totally. That never happens. Well, yeah, it doesn't, almost. But this just so happened, it's a very unusual situation, and it did happen. It was in India. And she never really developed an ego, nor did she go to school. But philosophers would come and sit at her seat and ask her questions. She was effortlessly asking. She's a very unusual being. Okay. Well, when she was a little girl, I just remember, this is the story I remember reading about. She and some other children were walking down this path in India. Maybe she's this high. I don't know. I just know she's a little girl. And well, a bunch of buffalo were coming down the path. They have buffalo in England, India. I think they're the long kind of longhorns, rather than yeah, the African buffalo have shorter curved on them. They're very dangerous animals. But in India, buffaloes are not that dangerous. I mean, I think they even use them sometimes in their farming or something. Does that sound right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Spoken from a person who's lived in that part of the world for a while. Well, they were walking down the street, but they're still big animals. They're not a thundering herd of elephants, but still, you don't be run over by them and trampled. And well, all the children just fled. I mean, they just got out of the way, except one. She just kept walking. Hey, it's just buffalo. I'm sure she hadn't forgotten God. Throughout her life, I doubt she ever forgotten God. That's kind of my understanding of it. And those the children ran away, and when they stopped to turn back and look, what they saw was buffalo going around her, but one buffalo had stopped and was licking her. You remember God. The first indication of fear, particularly if it's serious. So that's why the Course tells us so often there's really nothing to fear. It's not denying that you can produce fear in your mind. You most certainly can. Whenever fear occurs, if it's really big and it looks really dangerous, remember God. If it's just a minor thing, but it's still annoying, you could be in your house by yourself and hearing strange sounds and getting fearful. Say this. Say, I'm feeling fearful. I'm choosing fear. I'm choosing to feel fearful now. I'm going to choose again to feel fearful. 2 minutes from now, I'm going to choose it again. In fact, I'm just going to choose it again right now. I'm going to choose to feel fear. And you just keep saying to them, I'm choosing to feel fear. And then say, if I can choose to feel fear, why can't I just choose to? I'm going to stop choosing fear. Bring the power back to you, make you the person that's choosing the fear, and then decide to not. If you can choose that way, you can choose some other way. I choose to not feel fearful. I'm with God, and his light is with me. The Course says that only the love of God can protect you in all circumstances. And that's very, very true. Whatever defenses we come up with, we shut the door and lock it. Well, that can't protect you in all circumstances. Somebody knocks the door down. You know, well, I put in a bigger door. They come through the window. I mean, you. Well, I will just live in a house that has cinder block walls, thick, 4 feet thick all the way around. Fine, a meteorite hits your house and demolishes the whole thing. I mean, you cannot perfectly protect yourself by your means ever from all circumstances. It's just not possible. Only the love of God can protect you in all circumstances. You say, well, how would the love of God protect me from the meteorite? Fine, it's simple. He'd see to it that you weren't there. just let you decide to go over here instead of enter that little enclosure. Who knows how you do it, but it's not going to be a problem. Furthermore, think of this: something heavy coming from above, about to hit you. If you are in a state that is not fearful, it hits you. You never feel pain. You're simply out of your body. It was time for you to go anyway. You're now delighted. Exactly where's the problem in that? On the other hand, if you chose fear and were horrified, scared half to death, and it hits you, I see that as a problem. Fear is not fun. A little bit maybe will tickle the senses or something, but basically, we don't like real fear. Everyone wants to die, for example, in a state of peace. You know, you say about somebody, what were they at peace? And you kind of regret it if they were not. Well, furthermore, everyone, I don't know whether everyone wants to live at peace or not, but I do. And I imagine that you do. So let me just say that we want to live at peace as well. The Course says this is essential, actually. It is essential that you live at peace. But I'm talking about a peace of mind that is not dependent upon what's happening out there. And you see, that's the kind you want. That, and the Course says that is, I think he says that's a motivation for this course, to have that kind of peace and keep it. That's where you need to be. And so therefore it is very important to not fear, because fear and peace are not the same thing. Now by fear, let's think about fear just a little bit more. Fear has the obvious meaning of the thundering herd of elephants, very obvious. But really in our lives, fear is not that type of fear. We don't have elephants here, actually, as you well know. It would be more like a concern. It'd be a fearful concern. I'm concerned about the economy. I'm afraid it might collapse. I'm concerned about earthquakes. I'm afraid I'll fall into the gap when hits. Or I'm concerned about this, that, or the other. I'm concerned about finding a job. Now, it's fine to be interested in having a job and pursue, looking around trying to get one, but being concerned about, what if I can't find it? That's fear. I'm not saying you're bad to feel that way. I'm just saying you don't have to feel that way. It's your choice. And the Course tells us again and again, don't choose fear, because it wants us to be at peace. But God is at peace. God never brings fear. Holy Spirit never brings fear. The Holy Spirit brings peace. And in fact, that is the basic method taught in the Course in Miracles for listening to the Holy Spirit, which is the voice for God. If you're contemplating some action or other, going into this little enclosure I was mentioning just a second ago, does it feel peaceful to you? Just stop, take a breath. Does this feel peaceful to go in there? I don't want to go in there. Okay, then don't. If it doesn't feel peaceful, don't do it. Don't question the reason. The reason doesn't make a difference. God speaks through peace. If I'm about to step here and it doesn't feel peaceful, I just want to pull my foot back. And I don't care what the reason was. It doesn't make a difference. I want to follow the steps of peace. When it's a step, some other kind of step, I'm just not going to put my foot on it. That's my intention, at any rate. If I do put my foot on it, I'll feel, this doesn't feel good. Well, I'm pulling it back off. And I'll wait to find a direction that does feel peaceful. We all talk about in here, reading the Course in Miracles, how important it is to follow the guidance of the Holy Spirit. That's how you determine whether you're doing that or not. If it doesn't feel peaceful, you are not following the Holy Spirit. You're just following the ego, or you see. The ego doesn't bring peace. The ego doesn't know what peace is. You can follow peace in this life, but you have to at least reach it once. Okay, at least once. If you ever reach it, just stay there. Now, if you've never reached it, well, we got a problem. Pray for it. Father, I would like a state of peace. I'm open. And you don't have to convince God about giving it to you. What you really have to convince is that you can open yourself to receive it. You see, because if you insist on being fearful, you're saying, I'm refusing your peace because I'm playing with fear right now. Do you like playing with fear? Well, no. Well, why don't you just stop doing it? Well, I can't. I'm just playing with it. Go away. I'm playing with fear. If you want to do that, you can. The Course says, seek peace instead. Love and light bring peace. And once you realize, first of all, there's nothing wrong with you. That's just garbage from the biggest dump I can think of, which would be called ego. There's nothing wrong with anybody. Well, some people are really violent. It's not because something's wrong with them. It's because they don't think right. Their thinking is off, yes. But thoughts can be changed. That's, just because you got the wrong clothes, you're wearing the wrong shirt one day, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. You can go in there and change your shirt. The only thing that is off here in this plane of existence is that our minds entertain false thoughts. Thoughts of fear, thoughts of anger, attack, violence, all of that. And those are all choices. They're the choices that you make, and you can choose the opposite, and you can ask for help from Spirit to help you choose the opposite. Now, the next time you're angry at someone, understand your mind has rolled off into the ditch here, the ditch of anger. And generally, we need a little help in that. So you just stop and say, Spirit, help me see this situation as you do. You are terrified, aren't you? The Spirit will not ever tell you that it's terrified. There is no fear in truth. You've just generated it in your mind. But I'm about to die, so what's fearful about that? Nothing, actually. From what I read, there's something called esoteric literature written by our more intuitive peoples that have a larger vision of things beyond this physical world. And when you read some things like that, what you'll find sometimes they say is that being born is a lot more harder than dying. And I can understand that, getting crammed into that little bitty baby and giving up all your knowledge. You come out knowing freaking nothing. You can't even say a word. All you can do is cry. Yeah. This is not a real appealing thought. That's not a real appealing deal. If you were present it to me now, Bob, would you like that? You'd like someone to do that to you? And I would say, no, thank you. I'll pass on that. And dying is nothing compared to that. There are many accounts of people going out of their bodies at the point of death. They're called near-death experiences. They're on an operating table or something, and all the vital signs stop, and they just come out of their body. But eventually they come back. If you ask them, was that fearful? They never say it's fearful, any more than getting up out of bed. It's just arising. And you say, well, I don't know whether to believe all that or not. Let me just end with one little story that is really interesting, makes a big impact. There was a little girl, I think, that had an operation of some sort or other. And after it was over, she told the nurses that she'd gone out of her body. And she could look down and see her body there on the table. Nurses said, well, a lot of people have hallucinations like that. She said, well, if it was an illusion, yeah, but I could see the doctor. In fact, I could see he wore socks of two different colors. One sock was red and the other was green. And the nurse said, oh, I saw that too. This was particularly interesting since the little girl was blind.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Awesome, Bob. Woo, woo, woo,
I'll pay her later.
woo.
Isn't it nice having a cheering section? Enshrined forever on YouTube.
I'm trying to steal your pen, but
Thank you. Thank you all for attending here at Oasis and virtually. Appreciate it. Thanks, Dan, for setting all this up so that we can do this. And let's close as we usually do by joining in affirming that the light has come. And the affirmation is the light has come, I am, and we are the light of the world. And I invite you to stand if you would like. And let's say that together.